G'day and thanks for joining us for another Australia Talks. I'm DK and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host Ardeet. Today is Thursday, the 22nd of January 2026, and our topics this week are AI Blackface? A new social media account of an Aboriginal Steve Irwin-like character has caused some interesting and awkward questions. And foreign ministers have said that Australia should reconsider its alliance with a fiercely unpredictable USA. Of course, we'll have our Two Ticks Town Talk, and then we'll jump into This Week in Australian History, and we'll finish off, as always, with a 4X bottle top trivia. But before we get into all of that, let's catch up on the last week. Ardeet, g'day. What have you been up to?
G'day, DK. Well, for the first time in a long time, I went to a concert on Tuesday night in at the Festival Hall in town up in Melbourne. See the Viagra Boys. They're a Swedish post-punk, they classified. They were a mob that someone I knew from online had sent me a song with, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Looked up another couple of songs, and it was one of those ones, oh, I like that. And I have listened to probably more of their music on, a regularly intermittent basis than I have for any other new band for quite a while. I mean, I like listening to a whole lot of different sorts of music, but I found myself listening to theirs a lot, and I thought, oh, bugger it, I haven't been to a concert for ages. I thought, well, I hope not go feel out of place because, being an old fella, but no, there was plenty of people around my vintage. In fact, the couple that I sat down next to initially, they were probably my age as well. They'd come up from Tassie. He wasn't overly interested in it, but his wife was, and so he said he was more interested in like the museums and art galleries and that. But he was there. Thought he'd come along for the experience. And she looked over at me and had a bit of a smile. She said, "Oh, look at that!" Pointed to her husband and said, "Oh, look at this." This guy, he's got his earplugs, and he had one of those, those foam earplugs where you have with a little string join them. He had them round his neck. And I said, yeah, I got my earplugs too. And she said, what? I said, I got about half my hearing left. I've got to keep what I got there. I said, I bought my foam earplugs, and he looked very pleased with himself that I also had it as well. So I took my foam earplugs and also the ear protection, which are like little plugs that go in for when I'm hunting, but they're a bit of a different shape, and they've got like a little hole through them, so they'll block a lot of the big heavy waves. The foam ones I left in for the support act, but I went to the normal hunting ones because I was missing out a bit of the high end. It made it a little bit muddy. The support act I wasn't really massively interested in. They're keen, energetic and that, but I was listening. I thought, oh no, I want to hear more than this, even if I have to take a little bit of a hit on the volume. And yes, I really enjoyed it. It was something that it's been a long time since I've actually been in a place like that. I think they had about 5,000 odd people in there. That's the capacity of the place is 5.5, and it was chockers. So it was good, and they were their sound was good. They were professional. Light show was good. Recognised a few songs, didn't recognise a few others, but it was a fun night. So that was my highlight of the week. What about you? What have you been up to?
I have been, it's the final week of school holidays, which I think for most parents around the country are very excited about. So Australia Day is on Monday, which is nice this year. It's on a Monday. And then, of course, back to school on Tuesday. So we're all very, very keen for that. It's been up here. We've had a lot of rain, and so it's been. I think it's been like hot and rainy.
Right.
So there's been a lot of inside days, and everyone is basically going a little bit crazy. I know up in the far north they talk about cabin fever during the winters where they can't really go outside, and I certainly think we've got a little bit of that in the DK household. So super looking forward to next week, and just getting back to the normal routine. I don't love the summer school holidays. Because they are so long, and it throws everybody out. Even just look, I live in a touristy area, so it is also annoying trying to get out of the house just locally because there's a lot of people around and things like that. So that can be quite frustrating. You go to your favorite fish and chip shop and it's overrun, and you have to wait an hour and a half to get your food and things like that. So it can be quite frustrating. So fingers crossed as all schools sort of go back. I think around the country they broadly go back to school within the next week. So things will settle down and we can get back into proper routine, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. So
yeah, I bet. It's been a long time. It feels like we've been talking about them being on school holidays for ages.
It's basically been 6 weeks. So
that's a long time.
It is a long time. So yeah.
Much as you love them, be happy to see them go back to school.
Absolutely. So yeah. Between just driving everybody crazy, and just that kid energy, which especially when you are sort of trapped inside, it builds up, and there's fights and chaos, and everyone needs a bit of a break. So unfortunately, the rain and weather did sort of stop us from going on a bit of a holiday, which was a bit annoying. Also, we had family coming and going earlier this month, so because of that, you throw it all together, it all became a little bit difficult for us to get away for a couple of days, which I think would have helped kind of settle everyone down a little bit. Anyway, there's holidays coming up again in, I don't know, Easter time, so we might do something then. But until then, fingers crossed. Next time you hear from me, the kids will be back at school and I'll be much, much chiller, I think. The stress levels will go down.
Oh, you've done well. It sounds like you survived.
I've survived. I need to get a t-shirts.
Yeah.
T-shirts, mate.
I survived holidays 2025, 26. Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to think of a segue into this next segment, but I can't think of one. So let's just jump straight in. A new social media account hailed as the Aboriginal Steve Irwin is actually an AI character that was created in New Zealand. With a dark mop of dark curls and brown eyes, Jaron stands with a thick of the Australian outback, red dirt at his feet, and a snake unfurled in front of him. In a series of online videos, the social media star, known online as the Bush Legend, walks through dense forests or drive along desert roads or hunt for wedge-tailed eagles. Many of the videos are set to pulsating percussion instruments and didgeridoos. His speech is peppered with mate and crikey as he passionately shares snippets with thousands of his followers about Australian wildlife, from venomous snakes to crocodiles to redback spiders, and of course the elusive night parrots, once thought to be extinct. His followers leave admiring comments, marveling at how he can get so close to the animals, and even suggesting that he needs his own TV show. To many, he's an Aboriginal man building an online following. Yet he belongs to no nation. He has no biological descent and is not recognised or claimed by any Aboriginal community. No one knows his family. No mob, no elders, no aunties, no uncles or cousins. His name is Jaron. No last name, no lineage. That's because Jaron is AI. He's a completely fictional, digitally constructed version of an Aboriginal man. The wildlife and the man presenting them are all figments of our collective imagination. Jaron is the creation of Keegan John Mason, a South African content creator based in New Zealand, who some say is blurring the lines between AI and human appropriation, while others are calling it digital blackface. Across social media, Mason has created various social pages named Bush Legend, Wildlife Stories and Facts, pages he describes as digitally created for education and awareness. The pages feature interactions with and facts on various native fauna and from Australia, including birds, reptiles, and mammals. Bush Legend has gained almost 200,000 followers on various social media pages, 92,000 on Facebook, 89,000 on Instagram, and 25,000 on TikTok, though I guarantee you those numbers are out of date by the time we're recording this, with many of his followers believing that Jaron is a real person. Videos featuring Jaron first appeared in December 2025, with the page quickly jumping in popularity up to 15,000 followers. On his page descriptions, Mason notes that his pages use AI-generated visuals to share wildlife stories for education. But while Bush Legend and Jaron's popularity is growing, so are the criticisms. Corey Tutt, OMA, Calamari man and STEM professor and founder of Deadly Science, says that the issues of AI replicating cultural knowledge and lived experience is deeply concerning. Darren Wildman Duffy, a non-Indigenous wildlife enthusiast and nature guide who lives on Larrakia country, has described out the Bush Legends pages to his 1.4 million followers. He told NITV, quote, It's a white bloke using a completely fictional digital version of an Indigenous man, often painted up in ceremonial paint to create fake wildlife content and make money. In fact, everything you see on that page is AI. All of it. The character, the wildlife, the interactions, none of it is real. It sets a bad example for people, adults and children alike. Wild animals are wild animals. They are not placid pets for people to play with. They need to leave it to the professionals. End quote. In response to growing criticisms, Bush Legend creator Keegan Mason has digitally prompted Jaron to address those comments. He said, I'm not here to represent any culture or group, and this channel is simply about animal stories. If this isn't your thing, no worries. Scroll and move on, he said. So Mason clearly has no moral or ethical issues with this sort of content. From what I can see, he just wants to make money off it. This feels really... What's the word I want to use? Grubby?
Grubby. Okay.
Sort of, it just feels dirty in a way that I don't like immoral. I sort of don't know how I feel about this. I do think it is some sort of cultural appropriation. I also don't like the idea that AI is sort of taking these sort of wildlife, Steve Irwin type wildlife presenters, because there are quite a lot of them that are real. And of course, it's taking viewership away from those people that are actually doing the real thing and are experts in the field and so on and so forth. So I do feel I'm sort of negative about this. But how do you feel about this? What's your opinion?
Well, I think two things can be true at the same time. I can like this, but dislike offensive blackface. So we'll go to that one first, because that's the one that people seem to be clutching the most pearls over. You know, is this blackface? Look, you could twist a definition to it to say it in there. I didn't find any of the arguments and the offence notes particularly compelling, because it's not a real person, it's a program. Does that mean that I'm a white fella? So does that mean that I can never write a novel that's got an Aboriginal bloke in? Does that mean I can never create a painting that's got a Aboriginal fellow in. Does it mean I can't write a song that has any influence from Aboriginal music, or even talks about an Aboriginal couple? Now, it's another form of art. And to say that it's offensive blackface, I think is just outrage, outrage in search of something to be outraged about. So,
yeah,
I don't really give that much credence at all. Like it's either a problem to be addressed for everyone, or it's not. And just signalling out one or two groups doesn't really do it for me. There was the things in there saying, look, it could be for small groups, or this type of person, or this group of person, it could be deemed offensive there. I think, well, no, it's either something that you don't want done because you don't want it impacting on humans, or it's just something that's out there happening. So yeah, I wasn't convinced it as them. It's openly described as AI. Now, look, I'm not on TikTok. Yep, good luck to you if you are, but I'm not a TikTok person. I did find a short on YouTube, and aside from the bit where the koala who is holding up actually spoke to him, I thought that was all pretty realistic. And I liked the production of that as an art form. He's a handsome looking I get his AI. He's a handsome looking bloke. He has a cheery demeanor. He comes across well. Just the little short bits that I saw on there, he's saying something about the animals. Like, it doesn't. Sure, koalas don't talk, but that was only. I don't know what the full context of that was. That might have made sense. But it's showcasing. It's showcasing some animals, and I put that down as just another art form. There was nothing offensive about it. I mean, if he'd got in there and basically been a dick, or was bagging out some mob or something, fine. But I'd have that same feelings whether it was AI or a movie or a real person anyway. But it wasn't. It all seemed to be, I thought, the little bits that I saw and what I read seems to be reasonably wholesome. He's open about it. I did like what he said, because I saw that bit, if you don't like it, scroll and move on. It's the same way as people who say, this is when we had free-to-air TV. This is terrible. And you think, well, okay, shut up, change the channel or turn it off. It's not that hard. I don't have to be, you're not a better person than me because you're offended on somebody else's behalf. So, look, the cultural appropriation, yep, I can see an argument there for that, for sure. I think people would still have problems with it if it was, an Aboriginal bloke or woman doing it. You can always find ways to have problems with that. But yeah, I can see some argument for the cultural appropriation, but I also think too it's such a melting pot on social media that if you start trying to police cultural appropriation, you may as well just turn the thing off. I didn't really find the racist and offensive. From what I read and saw, didn't seem to be deliberately trying to deceive people. I didn't really have much of a problem with it. We'll see how it goes from there. Obviously, there's other ones out there, not the an Aboriginal bloke running around, but there's other AI personalities out there. They don't seem to be getting the backlash. There you go, Freudian slip. The backlash that this one's getting. At the end of the day, it's another art form. I have, as most of the podcast know, I have strong feelings on supporting people being able to express themselves through art, and that's how I categorise this one. So, yeah, I do have a strong opinion of it, and that's it. What about you?
I'm sort of like conflicted about this because part of me goes, it's not really hurting anyone directly. It's sort of upsetting because of the implications it can have, I guess. And in some ways, I wouldn't even say it's cultural appropriation. It's almost like human appropriation because Jaren's not a real person. And as much as you go, I don't think they're deliberately deceiving someone. They're not going out of their way saying, oh, Jaren's a real person and this is what I do on my life out in the outback and stuff like that. Like, he's not going out that far. But they're also not disclosing it as this isn't real. These animals don't actually behave like this. And I think there's an inherent danger in that because they're positioning themselves as an educator. So like they are very, it's hard to shake the comparison to Steve Irwin because his format is basically what they're copying, right? Yeah. And so it's difficult to someone like Steve Irwin, who was exceptionally experienced, highly beloved because he was skilled, he was respectful, he had a lot of care for the animals and things like that. Like, he would absolutely prefer himself getting hurt as opposed to the animal getting hurt, stuff like that, right? And so I think we kind of go into watching these videos in that same mindset. But the reality is it's not real. And it's not real in the same way that you could say, oh, well, some of Steve Irwin's stuff wasn't real because it's unlikely that they would have a koala in a bloody news studio or something like that, you know, in a way that is kind of fabricated and fake, right? Not scripted, but certainly not 100% authentic.
Not in their natural habitat of the Channel 9 news studio.
Exactly, right. Contrary to what maybe some of our international listeners think.
He didn't walk into the studio and coax it down from the rafters with a branch of eucalypt. Yeah,
exactly. You know, there's a lot of wildlife in the country, but not quite to that level. We're not overrun with wildlife. You know, you're not shooing Skippy out every morning when you wake up. That sort of thing. And so I think it's in its presentation, without it being explicit. Like, look, I think there's still some entertainment value in knowing that it's AI, and I think there's some people that go, well, so what? It doesn't really matter. I still like it because I like the way it's presented to me, and it's not a problem. And I don't think if you're aware it's AI and you still want to watch it, totally fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm not saying shut it down and get rid of it or anything like that for that specific reason. I sort of have, I guess, two problems for me. There's the wildlife aspect of it, which creates an unrealistic expectation of your interaction with a wild animal. And also there's the cultural thing. It's an Indigenous person. So if we sort of focus on the first part with the wildlife, that bothers me because they're not real animals. They're so scripted that like they're not real, right? So but they appear to be real. And I think that's what my problem is that you've got these dangerous animals that some of them are genuinely deadly, and he's handling them and so on and so forth in a way that makes it look like it's easy or he is appropriately skilled or trained. But of course, none of it is real. It's basically akin to CGI, but it's presented in a way that appears to be real. And so that's kind of my problem there with that specific thing. The other thing that bothers me is the Indigenous part of it. And I think it bothers me more that this is like a white South African dude that lives in New Zealand that's doing this. Because I don't know, it just feels like if we were going to have Indigenous AI representatives teaching people about the Australian wildlife and the outback, you would feel like it would be more appropriate if it was managed by an Indigenous organization or something like that, right? But it's not. And so I sort of go, I'm not going to, I wouldn't go as far as saying it's digital blackface or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I do understand why it bothers people. And it bothers some Indigenous people that have looked at it and
I can understand why it bothers people. Yeah, I get why. That doesn't mean I agree with it, but yeah.
Yeah, so, and this is where I kind of get conflicted, because does it bother me as a non-Indigenous person? Not too much, but it does make me feel a little bit awkward in a way that I go, I know that the Indigenous people, certainly some of them, are not going to like this because of various reasons. It's a complicated situation about with their feelings towards certain things, and so I feel that I guess I should have respect for them and their culture, and if they go, we don't like this, we wouldn't do this, don't do this, then I would have enough respect for them to not do that, if you know what I mean.
Assuming there was an organisation that all Aboriginals recognised as representing all of their views.
Of course, absolutely, of course.
Which doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't exist. And a lot of them probably don't really care that much about it, or it doesn't bother them. Or I'm absolutely certain that there's probably a group of them that go, actually, we love this because it promotes Indigenous people and stuff like this. So this is where I go, I get real torn, because it's like, I don't really have a horse in this race. And so I don't want to back any side, because it's like, I don't want to, I think the other thing is that it's not an Australian that's running it either. So it's someone sort of profiting off Australian culture, and they're not Australian. And so it's kind of like, well,
so what
bugger off.
So for example, if I was thinking I want to do a painting, and I remember seeing a picture of, like, you see some of those Maori face tattoos, and that you just think, oh my God, they're just super impressive. So if from memory I thought, I'd like to depict a scene, and in there I got a Maori man and woman with striking face tattoos, and it might be for some commentary, or it could just be to say, well, I appreciate their contact, their being at one with the land over in New Zealand. If I painted that, would that be an issue?
I think the key thing here is that you're a person that's painting it. So you're putting your own artistic twist on an existing thing. Like, I can't speak for Maori people, and I don't know.
Neither can I.
That they would be either happy or not happy with it. But I do think there's a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation, right? Like if you go to Japan and you buy like some cool Japanese like cultural things, and you put them over your mantelpiece or something like that. I don't see that that's a problem. Some people would say that you shouldn't have that because that's not your culture and things like that. I think that's a bit silly. You can appreciate other cultures around the world and in a respectful way. And I think if you did a painting like that, at least from my point of view, I wouldn't see a big problem with that. I think what would be a problem was if you were painting them and selling them in quite a large way and you were profiting off without permission. I think that starts to get into a bit more of a grey area in this situation. I think that's the problem with
Even if they were fictional.
Even if they were fictional, I think because you're sort of taking something from a culture that you don't necessarily fully understand or appreciate to make money, I think that's where the problem is, right? You're doing it to profit off it, and that in of itself can become a problem, especially if you become more popular than the genuine article, right? Because then you're kind of, in a way, taking something from that culture and you're not really giving anything back. And I think that can be a problem. And I would say that about any culture, quite frankly. And I think that's kind of where the problem that I have with this is it's someone, in this case, it sort of just adds to the injury that it's a foreigner that's doing it, right? Someone taking this and profiting off it in a way that they don't really have. They're not, I would say, openly disrespectful, but like, I doubt that they know much about Aboriginal culture, well, the thing is they're not even making it, right? They're just punching in prompts to an AI and it's spitting it out. So like, there's no effort from them. They're not researching, Aboriginal culture and
but they're not also not portraying it as Aboriginal culture though. As I understand it, they just happen. The host that they've chosen happens to be an Aboriginal bloke with a broad accent. Unless I'm wrong. I didn't read anything to it, but there's nothing there that I heard that they're pretending he's anything more than that. Like he's not saying, according to my dreaming, this is something that's important to me for being, a Murray fella or something. As I understood it, there's not any of that going on. It's just that he happens to be an Aboriginal bloke.
Yeah,
did I miss something?
Well, I watched. I can't say for certain because I didn't watch all of the videos. I did watch a few of the videos, and it was in multiple videos they had him dressed up in ceremonial like dress and had his face painted and things like that. So, which I would say is Aboriginal culture and does feel out of place given the context of the videos and things like that. So I would say there is a line. Look, I'm not going to say they crossed that line because I don't think I have the appropriate qualifications to say that, right? But I feel like they're getting very close to that line, and also they're trying to educate the public on things that I don't think they really know much about, which is in of itself sort of plays into that first part that I have a problem with. Right. So, you put it all together and I just go, this feels a bit grubby in a way that, and I'm absolutely certain there's going to be more copycats of this. Look, I don't think I'd have as much of a problem with it if it was just some bloke, even if it was a Kiwi dude out in the outback making videos going, oh, look, I found this. I don't know much about it, but isn't it cool? That sort of stuff. I don't think I'd have a problem with it at all. I'd be like, yeah, get out there, go and do things. Even if you don't know much about it, at least you're excited, you're passionate, you're doing the thing, right? This isn't a person.
I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
This isn't a person. It's a bloke sitting behind a computer, punching in prompts. Make this guy look like this. Make this guy say these things, and it's spitting it out. There's very little effort put involved. There's almost no quality control. Who knows if half the stuff he's saying is correct or incorrect? We don't know. AI hallucinates all the time. It could tell you, there's been numerous examples of AI giving you very certain answers to questions that are horrendously wrong. I think, what is it? The AI recommends you eat 12 rocks a year or something like that because it's healthy for you or something. Look,
there's certainly been things like that in the past. It's getting better. I mean, it still hallucinates. It is getting better. There's no doubt about that. If there's anything important that AI tells you, you've got to verify it.
Of course. And that's kind of my crux with this as well, is we don't know what sort of quality control, if there is any quality control, that basically goes into these videos. And as a result, the information that's being provided to the public in a way that is akin to an expert, again, drawing comparison to Steve Irwin, because a lot of people I think that are watching these are fooled by it, which is partially their own silly fault for just willingly believing everything on the internet. But they're just like, oh yeah, no worries, it's fine, and oh, that's how Aboriginal people live out in the outback or whatever. Like, we know that this person's AI. We know that this person's not real. But people in other countries that might be watching this go, oh, wow, that's what it's like out in the outback and things like that. And it creates an unrealistic expectation of, I think, wildlife interactions, Aboriginal people and culture through things like dress and music and stuff like that. As far as I know, there's no explicit, this is how we live out in the outback and stuff like that, as far as I'm aware, but I could be wrong. He might have made some stuff like that. The whole thing, you put it all together and it makes me uncomfortable because this is one of these situations where the genie's out of the bottle and you can't put it back. And it's not going to be the last, and I'm certain it's probably not the first. It's probably just the most popular currently. Yeah. And I think it's going to, and also like, forget for a second it's the Aboriginal wildlife thing. I'm absolutely certain there's more versions of this. If this guy's doing it for one, he's probably pumping out a bunch of them. Because it's just about trying to make money, right? At the end of the day, that's his motivation. He's just doing it to make money. And he's probably got ones for New Zealand Maoris, I don't know, doing what they're doing. And he's probably got some for different cultures all around the world. And I don't know, the whole thing just feels horrendously fake. We're moving into, do you know what? Now that I say this, I think I've come to realize part of my reason I don't like this is that this is kind of where the future of entertainment is sort of heading. And I think that disturbs me a lot as well.
Right.
That the Steve Irwins of the past are going to get replaced by digital versions of them. Everyone, I think you made an interesting point at the beginning when you were saying that he's a good-looking fella. He is. And actually, almost all the AI people are good-looking people. I've never seen an ugly AI person, actually. And so that, that gets into the unrealistic beauty standards and which is sort of outside the scope we're talking about. But I think you sort of put it all together and I just go, oh, shit, is this what the future looks like? I don't know if that's the future I like. And I don't want to support that because I think it's going to be a problem moving forward. This exact example, I don't have enough. It doesn't bother me enough to actually, call my local representative or even comment on his posts going, this is a bunch of shit. You should shut it down. You should be embarrassed by what you're doing. But like, I might follow it up in say 6 months and see if it's still chugging along and how big of a behemoth he's become and blah, 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 blah. But I don't like it in the way that this is a thing now, and I'm sure we're just going to see more and more of it as the time goes on, quite frankly. So, fair
enough. Okay, well, we don't always see eye to eye on things, but I get some of those points.
Yep. Join us next week with DK and Ardeet bot. He will agree with me on everything. I think that's sort of, I guess, the crux of my point is it's not real. It's not authentic. It is very fake for the camera. Don't get me wrong.
Would you consider it art?
No, I don't think I would because it's not.
No,
it's not real. It's not. There's no human effort gone into it. I think art.
Do you call
needs
movies art?
Yeah, but they're human. They're made by humans.
What about if you're using CGI?
It's still deliberately directed by humans. The direction, the art direction, the style, like cartoons are kind of a form of, they're not CG obviously. Well, today they are, but like traditionally they weren't. They were hand drawn. But you could also use mechanical drawing machines and things like that to help you through that process. And so I guess the art style and direction has always been directed by a person. There's a person that goes, yes,
he's still directing this. And sorry, this was one of the points. And I thought this was going to be a shorter segment. But anyway, it's interesting. I think you're underselling just how much he's going to have to direct and and script and modify this thing. I'm by no means saying that he's, blood, sweat, and tears over every second of it. But you don't just say to the you can train up the model. I'm assuming he's trained his model and got his prompts and worked it through and refined it. But it's not just as simple. And I think people fall in this trap. It's not just as simple as plugging the AI. Oh, great, that's it. It's come out perfectly, because he still has to go through it. He still has to look at it and think, does this make sense? Is this within the frame of what I'm trying to create? Does it look as real as what I'm wanting it to be? Is it going according to this script? Does it tell the story that I want to tell? Does it portray the image that I want to portray? He's got to know things like, well, do the details look realistic enough? Now, I think there's a whole lot of stuff there that you're sort of yada-yadaing over a little bit. There's no doubt it's easier than what it was saying to create this 10 years ago, even, which is not that long ago. Yeah. But it's not just as simple as smashing a button and pumping it out on YouTube.
No, I'll concede that, but also I would counter by saying the skills he's using to create this are not what I would call genuinely artistic, in that he is just editing what the machine is creating. And he's going, oh, no, that doesn't quite suit what I want. Do it again until I get what I want. He's not actually putting the effort in like it's not a skill that he has other than I'm directing you to make a thing. Right. Everyone listening has had that middle manager that you go, if I got rid of him, we would still work the same. Right?
It'd be no loss. Yeah.
That's how I see his. So you're right. I'm not denying that he doesn't have some input in the development of the show, if you want to call it that, the reels. But let's be honest. I think you're being a bit generous in the amount of effort he puts in. He probably works for an hour a day on this thing, and he's probably making $1,000 for that. By just pumping it out, and it's a volume thing, right? Because you're not making it. He's not sitting there sculpting models and researching animals and things like that. Like, there's probably a little bit of that, but I would imagine he's getting probably an LLM to write a lot of the scripts, and then he's just sort of editing them down, and then he's pumping that in. He's interested in making money out of this and not genuinely passionate for wildlife and sort of like science education and things like that. He's not an entertainer. At most, being the most generous you could ever be, you could call him like an editor. And I think that's my big problem with it, is that, you and I are doing more effort having this conversation than what he does.
Maybe. Okay, so because this is interesting. If you don't mind just digging in a little bit more. So hypothetically, if he was employing a team of, if he was employing a writer and a couple of CGI experts and essentially directing or editing what they came back to him with and producing pretty much the same content, would you have an issue with that content?
I think I would have less of an issue on my first point about sort of like the wildlife, but depending on how it was presented. So a good example. So everything
exactly the same. Like it came across as essentially the same, but it was him using a team of people.
I think I would still have some issue with it in that, how well is it researched? Are you? I'm not sure that you would quite, because AI has a certain look to it, right? I'm not sure if you could quite capture that if you were doing it CG. I think it would probably be a little bit different.
CGI has a look.
Yeah. So I think in that way it would look a little bit different. And I do think it would probably not look as realistic, which I can't believe I'm saying, because AI has just come in leaps and bounds. And I think I would probably have less of an argument about the unwilling deception there, because it is kind of presented. I think it's presented in a way that is, it's deceptive through omission. You know, they're not saying this person isn't real. He's like, "Hi, I'm Jaren," as if you're a real person, but you're not. You're not even a cartoon. You know, I wouldn't mind if it was like, "Hey, I'm Batman." It's like, well, clearly Batman's not a real thing, right?
Right.
So it's more obvious in that way. The way that his current videos are presented suggests that this person could be real, or certainly is a character of some sort, as opposed to being complete work of fiction.
How's that different? How's that different to an actor? You know, an actor coming on and saying, you know, I'm so and so. I was born in Brooklyn, and the mother or father of such and such a thing, and yet setting up their character and saying that's who they are. I don't quite get the difference there,
because they are actually a real person. And they do have a real footprint in the world. So when you watch a film, you can there's a number of websites that you can go to and look up,
right.
Oh, that person's name is this, and they've done this before. And, you know, they have like a story, like an actual person does, right? So when you watch a film, sometimes I look up on my phone and I'll go, oh yeah, that person's in this, or I recognize that person from something else. Were they in another movie I've seen, and so on and so forth. So there's a human connection to them. There's a familiarity with that person because they are a real person. In this case, there's not, because they're not a real person.
What about cartoons, animated things? So what about animated things where you have, you know, so and so? What's that one? You got kids. She's the princess or something.
So I knew this is where you were going. Yeah. So with a cartoon, it's very obviously not real, right? Cartoons have a certain stylistic look to it, which I really like, and a lot of people do. And it's very obvious that it's not real, right? And as such, I feel like you sort of skip that omission issue, because it's very obvious. Even children know cartoons aren't real. If you're finding out that cartoons aren't real from this podcast, I think you probably need to see a mental health.
Yeah, exactly. Brace yourself, it gets worse.
You should probably go talk to someone, you know. But cartoons are still voiced by real people. So my daughter really liked a cartoon made by the BBC, I think, called Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom or something like that. And as I was walking past one day, she was watching it. I was like, oh, wait, I know that voice, because it was a voice actor that has been in a number of things. And so there's that familiarity that I think we all kind of have this, where we become familiar with the characters and the people that portray the characters, and those people are artists. You know, actors, I think even voice actors can bring so much to a character because of the skill that they have as a person that has
I'd
learned
agree with that,
and all of that kind of stuff, right? AI doesn't have any of that. It's copying the things that it's been inputted into. So I would almost guarantee you that when Mason is making these videos, he is saying something in the prompt, something like, I want it to sound similar to someone like Steve Irwin, right? So they're
possibly, yeah.
I would think so, because there's a lot of crikeys. You know, most people, I've never met too many Aussies that genuinely say crikey, not these days, in a way.
Impersonators do.
Yeah,
for
of course.
example, you know, and it does, you know, and it does get used sometimes when you're sort of paying out on yourself, or just, you know, hamming it up. So,
and again, this is, I guess, maybe where I find it's that sort of foreign influence of, oh, look, I want a stereotypically Australian character to do this thing, which I don't have any problem with that, right? But they're not paying actors and artists to do this. They're putting prompts into a computer, and they're editing it and stuff like that, and it's spitting it out, and they're putting it out for the world to see, and people are gobbling it up like they do on social media, which is its own problem, and they're making money off it. But there's no artistic skill here. at the most generous, he's editing it. He's not an artist. He's not employing voice artists or actors or animators or script writers. Oh, we're assuming that he might employ a script writer. I doubt it, but let's say he is.
Oh, let's just say for the sake of argument that he's using an LLM to generate the script as well. So I'm happy to go with say it's all AI. So
yeah. I feel like that's probably the case. If someone's going to this level, I doubt they're paying someone to write the scripts and things like that, right? So, and I think that's what bothers me about this a lot as well, is that it's he's making money from people watching it, but he's not providing anything back to the sort of artistic community that he's very happy to take from. You know, he's happy to take from entertainers, and I guess in a way you could call Steve Irwin an artist in the way he presents to the public through his videos, movies, and documentaries and things like that. And certainly through his zoo, which is fantastic. But you know, Jaren's never going to have a zoo. Let's not say never, but you know, realistically speaking,
say never, but
realistically speaking, he's not going to have a zoo.
You get a hologram happening, and then you get a hologram of AI Jaren.
Yeah, he's not a friggin' real person. He's not anything. Like, and it's. I think when you say that, people go, well, you sort of said as well, like, you know, well, cartoons aren't people and things like that, and you go, yeah, but they kind of are, you know, like. Going back to that Batman example, but Batman isn't real, but Batman, the character, has been played by a number of real people, whether they be in cartoon form with a voice actor or on the screen, like a live action movie. You know, we've had a number of them. And they are real people that have real skills, and they're bringing that to the table. They have a specific look, specific voice. Each Batman iteration is slightly different, whether it be at the cartoon version or the live action version. They're all different because everyone has their own artistic twist to it. And I think that's kind of part of my problem, is that's a human thing to do. This is an AI thing to do. I could make a Jaren video probably today, this afternoon, while we're recording the podcast, just because it doesn't take a lot of skill or time to do, because you're just punching things in. Yeah, you got to edit it at the end to make sure you get what you want, but it's all fake. It like truly fake. There's nothing real about it, and I think that bothers me.
Right. Yeah.
A lot more than I probably realized until we started talking about this. And you can't put this genie back in the bottle, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And we're going to see much, much more of it. And when I was researching this topic, writing the script for this, because I don't use an LLM for this, I did come across a couple of articles that were talking about AI actors, AI models that were designed to be an actor, and people would pay that model to then use them in a film and things like that. And I'm looking at this going, oh my goodness gracious, this is not good. I don't like that at all. I don't think I'd like to go to an art gallery that's full of AI art, even if it's good. I believe that for art to be art, it needs a human touch. It needs to have something in it, to that emotion. I think that's kind of a requirement.
Yep.
I think you can fake it with AI. I've seen fake AI art and I've gone, oh, that's pretty good. But it's a copy of, how it works. But yeah, I don't know. This whole thing makes me uncomfortable, I think, on many different levels. And it makes me feel a bit grubby is the word I think I used at the start. But
fair enough.
I do think the future is exciting in this space, though. Like, I'm not against AI or anything like that, but I don't like this way it's being implemented. I think it is a bit deceptive, and I think we can do better, So, anyway.
Oh, fair enough.
All right, let's move on. It's time for our Two Ticks Down talk.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. I've been here, there, everywhere.
This week we're heading down to Tassie, to Geeveston. It's a small town in southern Tasmania, 62 kilometres southwest of Hobart on the Huon Highway. It's about 37 in the miles. It's near the Huon River, surrounded by some of Tassie's most significant forests and apple-growing countries. So it has a distinctive geographic claim, which some dispute. Its claim is that it's Australia's most southerly administrative centre. So whilst it's the most southerly town of any significant size, there are some that are more south that claim the title, and they get, depending on how you count it, they get counted as settlements or settlements or villages. So it gets down into a little bit of a definitional thing, but it's a long way down south. At the end of the day, that's how it goes. So it's also it's far enough south that on winter's nights, sometimes if you live there, you can see the southern lights, the aurora australis.
That's cool.
I would love to see that. Now, I know there's been a few auroras this current sunspot cycle. It's been particularly active. I think I heard that there's something like 20 odd coronal mass ejections that had caused auroric events, which was surpasses number of cycles for a while. But I have yet to see an aurora, so it's on the list.
I have almost seen one, is how I'll describe it. I was in Hobart many, many years ago. I think it was early 2010, I want to say.
Right.
And I was in Hobart, and when we looked south, you could see a glow on the horizon, sort of that greeny glow. But it wasn't. It was when you're like out of the city and you sort of turn back towards it and you can see that glow on the horizon. That's kind of what it was like. So I don't want to say it was an aurora, but I feel like I can't claim to have seen one properly because it didn't really look like, a full aurora, but it was close. It's close enough.
Closer than me.
It was still impressive. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Impressive nature. Geeveston's also where they do the filming for the ABC series Rosehaven. So it serves as the town, as the fictional town's main street and central hub. And in fact, they've embraced it so much that they have transformed the Geeveston Town Hall into the Rosehaven Visitor Centre, and that's got memorabilia, cast photos, and a large Rosehaven sign up for fans. So that is something that's indicative of the spirit of this town, this embracing that change. Prior to European arrival in that area was the Aboriginal people who occupied it were the Tahuni Linga and the Malakurdi people. They lived off the plants and animals and seafood available in the region. They didn't establish permanent settlements within the dense rainforest. They're more seasonally mobile, just going through the landscape as the resources and circumstances dictated. So the thick forest canopy, whilst it was sort of had a whole lot going for it in certain areas, it wasn't really suitable for year-round permanent habitation. So as is I was just going to say it's typical Aboriginal people. It is typical Aboriginal people that we talk about all the time. They develop these sophisticated knowledges of where and when to find food. But the densest parts of the forest remain mainly a place of passage and seasonal use rather than permanent settlement. Europeans came along and settled it, obviously. The first ones came there as early as 1804, but the dense forest sort of turned them off a bit. They concluded that that terrain just made it unsuitable for European-style settlement and agriculture. But in the 1830s and 1840s, there's a bloke, John Price, an early settler at Franklin nearby. He sold 640 acres of his land to Lady Jane Franklin. And this was part of an experiment in social welfare. And Lady Jane, she was attempting to help poor but honest settlers gain a foothold in the colony. So she distributed parcels of land to these early arrivals, and the area became known simply as the settlement. So look, life was difficult. Eventually, Lady Jane went back to England. A lot of the early settlers abandoned the settlement and moved away looking for sort of better opportunities. But some relocated a little bit more along the Huon River, and one of these was the Geeves family. As you would probably guess, Geeveston's named after.
I was wondering. I was going to make a joke that they're all named Jeeves, but it turns out that might be more true than not.
Yeah. So it was originally called Lightwood Bottom around 1850, but then the family name became permanently associated with the town, and in 1861 it was officially named Geevestown in honour of William Geeves, and then over time that became shortened to Geeveston. So the real transformation of Geeveston came with timber. In 1874, John Geeves, who was a member of the same family, built the Speedwell, a steam-driven timber mill. It wasn't a small operation. It was one of the largest sawmills in the Southern Hemisphere at the time. And look, that wasn't a coincidence that he did that, because the forest surrounding Geeveston contains some of Australia's most valuable timber species. Huon pine, known for its durability and beauty, myrtle, leatherwood, sassafras, blackwood and stringy bark. So the Huon Valley region, including the Geeveston area, started to become a major timber production zone. By the late 1890s, the local economy had diversified a bit, but still remained focused on natural resources. Apple growing had taken off. By this period, there was 552 orchards in the area. So basically, the economy was built on two pillars: the timber and the local agriculture. The late 1920s saw the timber industry evolving. The town built one of the first paper pulp mills in Australia. That was when they convert raw timber into processed paper products. That created more value and jobs. And they weren't just exporting logs, they were actually manufacturing finished products. So that worked well for a couple of decades. Sawmills, apple thing. But then in 1962, Australian Paper Mills opened up a new pulp mill in Geeveston, became one of the town's largest employers. It was a big investment, lots of modern industrial processes, provided stable, well-paid employment for many of the local people. So it was a massive operation. Like, they got pulpwood, timber that wasn't really suitable for sawmilling, turned it into wood pellets for export, primarily to Japan. I think that was in that Midnight Oil song, and rest in peace to Rob Hurst, that Rip Rip wood chip. No, not Midnight Oil. Who was that? Red Gum, wasn't it? Rip Rip wood chip. That wasn't there. I'm bugging up my reference, but
yeah. It sounds good. Yeah.
Rest in peace for Robert Hurst anyway. So at its peak, it was the largest employer in the region, supporting hundreds of families directly, and then, because of logging contracts and transport and that, thousands more. So understandably, the town thrived, population grew, robust local economy. It was effectively the timber capital of Tassie. So it operated at that scale through the 1960s and 70s.
It was John
And
Williamson, sorry, that wrote that song.
John Williamson. God,
Yeah.
didn't even get close. Third time lucky. Thank you, DK. You'd bail me out on that one. Had too many things going round in my head. Unfortunately, then, there was the collapse of the timber industry. There was several converging factors had happened. There was changing global markets, the rise of environmentalism, and shifts in government forest policy. So in 1982, the paper mill closed, not just temporarily, it was complete shut down. So over 300 jobs were lost in a single closure, massive for the town. The economic foundation of the town just simply disappeared. Now, this was not a unique Australian story, as we know from our Two Ticks Town Talks. There's a number of resource-dependent towns that have faced similar collapses when industries closed. Then in 1997, 15 years later, the Regional Forest Agreement was announced, and that sort of put the end to any hope that timber industry would be happening, because it guaranteed that timber in the area would be protected for the following 20 years. So basically there was no chance of reopening. Businesses that had served timber workers and their families lost their customer base. People lost their hundreds of jobs. So it was looking grim. The town was sort of basically decimated, not just economically, but also in terms of morale and future prospects. But what happened next was demonstrations, something that showed significant community resilience. Rather than just sort of accept that things had just gone to pot, they had a bit of a think about what they could do. And there was one bloke, Laurie Dillon, who was the local postmaster, and he started getting creative, thinking about the town's future. So he thought, instead of trying to replace the timber industry with another one, they should make a strategic shift and build a tourism economy based on its remaining assets. So it had forests, the very forests that were no longer valuable for timber, but now valuable as natural attractions. Town sat near Harts Mountains National Park. It was surrounded by significant wilderness areas. It had a lot of history. So the timber industry that had built the town was now historical heritage. So they thought, rather than hide this part, they would embrace it, celebrate it, and educate visitors about it. They had a whole lot of traditional people as well. So that's creative people as well. And as the traditional resource economy declined, artists and craft people, because of the natural beauty and lower cost of living and housing at that point, began moving in there. And those creative residents, they became cultural assets. And then in 2000, the Tassie government announced it would invest $4.5 million in a major project, the Tahuna, Tahune, Tahuna Airwalk. The mayor then, Greg Norris, it was his brainchild, and it was going to be a unique experience to get visitors from Australia and beyond. So it opened in 2001. It was a big investment, but they built a 596-metre long airwalk that takes visitors 20 to 48 metres above the ground through the canopy of the tall trees. So you're walking up in the canopy of the trees. So you're going through hue and pine and myrtle, leatherwood, sassafras, blackwood and stringy bark. It can sustain the weight of 120 people at a time. And there's 3 separate walks. Together they can take up to 2.5 hours to complete. And the impact, they did their projections on it, but they estimated 40,000 visitors per year. And in the first year, the airwalk drew over 150,000. So, yeah, it hit the mark. And along with the airwalk, they also continue with celebrating their timber heritage through public art. There's a local chainsaw artist, Bernie Tarr, and he was commissioned to create wooden sculptures of local heroes. They weren't famous national figures. They're sort of people who mattered to Geeveston. There was the swearing chemist who has his glasses put on every morning by visitors as a joke. The blacksmith, the policeman. Yeah, and I tried to look up a little bit more trying to find out about putting on the glasses, how that worked, but I couldn't get it. So if you're down that way, or if you know about it, send us an email. Contact us, australiatalks@proton.me. Would love to hear about that. Actually, love to hear about anything that you guys send us. But yeah, if you know the answer to things like this, we appreciate it. So yeah, the swearing chemist, the blacksmith, the policeman, Olympic rower Simon Burgess, a fondly remembered elderly woman who was named Jessica Henneberry, renowned for her generosity, an apple picker, John Jeeves, town's founding father, a couple of people just outside the local bakery, and a timber worker displayed in the Forest and Heritage Centre. So they're all on the main street, done with chainsaws and chisels. So they're like a quirky, personal thing for the town, and they tell the story of the town, and they're all crafted from timber, like the material that actually built Geeveston. So it makes sort of Main Street an open air art gallery. And they set up a forest and heritage centre called the Visitor Centre, and it's got an historic display. So what was really, I really enjoyed about this was their remarkable recovery, the scale of it, and it was a pretty quick achievement. They didn't sort of artificially try to prop up a dying industry. Instead, they reinvented themselves. So their economy today is tourism driven. They've got the Main Street with shops and businesses serving visitors rather than timber workers. The community's attracted artists and craftspeople, and the Geeveston Visitor Centre is staffed and active. The town has built a Bendigo Bank, which was the first community bank in Tassie, and they established it when traditional banks closed their door following the mills closure. So that's represents an investment in the town's future. So it's a story of adaptation. Began as a pioneer outpost, grew into an industrial powerhouse, survived a total economic collapse, and by utilising its heritage rather than just its timber resources, managed to rebuild itself. And while it remains a quite factual town on the edge of the Australian wilderness, its ability to pull itself up by its bootstraps makes it a significant case study in regional resilience. So I was mighty impressed with the effort of the Geeveston, Tasmania community in this week's Two Ticks Town Talk.
That's awesome, actually.
Isn't it?
So often we cover towns that their glory days are long behind them, and the town is unfortunately very few people live there, sort of eking out a living doing something, but obviously the glory days behind them. But it sounds like Geeveston didn't want to go quietly into that good night. They saw an opportunity, grabbed it with both hands, and have made a success of it, which is so good. And I love, like you said, they didn't try and prop up a dying industry or sort of just were really stubborn about which I feel like is human nature in a way, where we're like, no, we can force the thing to keep going. It's not over yet. It's over when I say it's over, but they didn't do that. They went, yep, okay, look, we got to do something. We got to, either we die or we change, and they've changed, and I think they've grown stronger for it. So that's really cool. Actually, it looks like a beautiful area, actually. I wouldn't mind. I can't say I've got a Tassie trip in the plans, but that area is known for its giant trees and things like that. So
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I might have to get down there and maybe do a day trip to Geeveston, and it looks like they have quite a nice bakery there along the main drag. So might have to pop in for a pie or something like that.
Yeah,
one day.
And while they did have, they mentioned those were back in my notes. Yeah, so they had like the local postmaster, Laurie Dillon, who sort of championed the creative thinking, and then who was the mayor? Give him credit, Greg Norris with the Tahuna, I think it's pronounced Tahoon Airwalk. Whilst they sort of stand out as a couple of people, and Bernie Tarr, who is the commissioner to do the wooden sculptures, that doesn't work unless you've also got the community behind you. So you often find that people just sort of give up and go away. But these people were obviously persuasive enough, and the community was obviously committed enough to the area that they supported these ideas. And I just love that it paid off.
Yeah, it's great to see a community come around and actually actually vote in their interests for once. I feel like so often we can be against that. I am looking at the temperatures, the average daily temperatures though, down there. Oh, I'm not sure if I...
It's not going to be warm, is it?
No. It looks like February on average seems to be their sort of warmest and driest, because of course they do get quite a lot of rain down there, and we're talking a high of 22 and a daily mean of a minimum of 9.9. So just a bit
you'd have
chilly.
some difficulty.
Yeah, definitely. So I might have to put the ski jacket on and head down there, but I'll stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I was a Queenslander, are you, mate?
Yeah,
how'd you pick?
But yeah, look, Tassie's beautiful, and I love these sort of stories about little towns that refuse to. They just keep it on, and I love that. So if you're from Geeveston, or you've been to Geeveston, or you know someone from Geeveston, let them know that we're thinking about them, and one day we'll get down there. I don't know when, but one day.
Let's hope so.
All right, let's move on. Former Foreign Minister has said that Australia should reconsider its alliance with a fiercely unpredictable United States. Donald Trump's increasingly aggressive foreign policy gambits are unsettling Australia's strategic establishment, fueling unease that the US-led order on which Australia has relied on for decades is fracturing. Some have even gone to say that Pax Americana is dead in the water. The Albanese government should urgently reconsider Australia's alliance with the US, says two former Labor foreign ministers, as they voice alarm over Donald Trump's military intervention in Venezuela and renewed push to claim Greenland. Former Labor Foreign Minister, Bob Carr, said that Trump's US has become fiercely unpredictable ally, raising a colossal challenge for Australia. Another former Labor Foreign Minister, Gareth Evans, said that he was concerned that the US had zero respect for international law or the interests of its allies. Evans said that the AUKUS Pact should be reconsidered. He said, quote, "It's a wake-up call that can no longer be ignored by the Australian government. It's now time, more than ever, for the AUKUS submarine project to be abandoned and our defence capability to be built in our own interests, not those of a now totally unreliable United States." End quote. Gareth Evans was the foreign minister between 1988 and 2006. He's claimed that Trump's recent actions put beyond doubt that his America has zero interest in international law, morality, and the interests of its allies and partners. Bob Carr, meanwhile, the foreign minister from 2012 to 2013, said it was wise for the government to keep our head down and watch closely, adding that it was unclear what Trump's burst of utilitarianism was meant for the world. He says, quote, "Our US ally is fiercely unpredictable and dedicated ruthlessly to American national interests without any pretense of being committed to universal values or global rules-based order. That is a colossal challenge for Australia and the national security establishment, and it is utterly different America than the one that generated our rhetoric about shared values, rules-based order, and seeing the world through that lens." End quote. Mick Ryan, a military strategist and retired Australian Army Major General, said, quote, "I think we have to really give this some hard thought." He continued, quote, "I'm not an advocate for arbitrarily walking away from the US alliance. There's nothing that could replace it, to be frank, but we certainly need to have a think about our relationship. At the moment, we're seeing an American polity that is acting in ways that go against the norms and values that were established in the wake of the Second World War. That world, Pax Americana, is gone, but we don't have Pax something else yet. So we're in an interim between two global orders, and it is chaotic, it is uncertain, and it is not an environment that any previous Australian national security strategy or national defence strategy has really had to deal with." End quote. Despite the upheaval caused by Trump's recent interventions, former federal treasurer and ex-US ambassador Joe Hockey said that he still viewed the US as a reliable security partner for Australia. Hockey said that the best approach for Australia was to pick its battles when it came to responding to Trump. He specifically said, quote, "The best advice you can give is direct and behind the scenes. I've never understood the desire for people to be publicly critical of any president of the United States or any other world leader other than despots and ratbags. There's no advantage for us in becoming a public critic of Donald Trump." End quote. Lowly Institute Executive Director Michael Fullerlove said that there was no need to reconsider the US alliance, even if it is or was discombobulated to watch a president who has defined the US national interests so narrowly. He says, quote, "Why would we seek to downgrade our alliance with the US, the most powerful country in the world, and one which we have historically shared a world view with? Our interests are served by a stable balance of power in the Indo-Pacific, in which America plays an important role. This is the scenario that is most likely to preserve Australia's freedom of movement. At the same time, however, we should be building up our own capabilities, including by developing a more powerful defence force, and we should create a latticework of mutual trust with friends and neighbours in our region." End quote. So we are very divided, apparently. Every expert seems to have slightly different opinions, though everyone is in agreement that things are... The sailor in me wants to say, there's rough seas ahead. And so what do you think about these comments? I think probably some are fair, maybe some are a bit sensationalist, but what are your thoughts? And I guess what would be, if you were foreign minister, what would be your approach moving forward?
My thoughts are that Trump is ultimately a short-term problem if you view him as a problem, or as a short-term bonus if you view him as a bonus. And my opinion on most of those comments are that they are performative. If I was the foreign minister, I would be doing pretty much keeping the ship pointing in the same direction. I wouldn't be trying to do anything radical at this point. And in fact, the concept of a large ship is pertinent here for this type of situation, and also for geopolitics in general. Now, you have people, unfortunately, well, I won't say people, I'll say we. We are fed a diet and an environment in which we want this snappy, this is answers, this changes, that changes. We want, decisions to be made and everything to be just sort of, within the 24 hours so that we can move on to something else more that's interesting, that's going to capture our attention, that's going to be all, shiny and glittery. But that's not how geopolitics works. And it's not how this works. If you did decide that you were going to be trying to steer away from the US in a quick manner, you'd be burning that much time and resources that it would take a heavy toll on the economy, and you would change it in such a way that as soon as you realise that's probably a mistake, you've got a long way to correct that course, and that is frequently filled with dangerous waters. Now, I think it's important to continually assess our alliances, continually have a view of where we're going. If we had something realistic of, I don't know, I'm just trying to think what would be, if the US wasn't I call it an empire. Not everyone agrees with that. But if the US wasn't...
No, Americans do not like that. But I also call it an empire. So.
Yeah. Look, it ticks so many boxes that I'm comfortable enough that if America wasn't such a significant power, and we were essentially looking at, who are we choosing to be allied with, from a reasonably equal number of selections, I'd have a very different opinion. But the question of Australia, okay, we don't align with the US. Who do we align with ally with? And I personally don't think there's anyone. And if you're going to suggest that there are other people, I don't like the choices, and I personally wouldn't be going down any of those choices. So at this point, there's also the situation of this, like it or not, this is the best decision that we've got. This is the best alliance that we can have. Yeah, probably like I suppose you're talking you're talking the sort of crossover of the power base of the UK and America in the early part of last century with the wars and the British Empire declining and empire starting to come up and US starting to come up as a world power. But at some point in time there was, because by definition when you cross over there's an equality, however you measure it. At that point in time, if that's where we were at and we had a choice between the powerful Americans or the powerful UK, I could understand the argument, but there's not that option anymore. And I think a lot of it is because there's this intense dislike of Trump. And I have a whole spectrum of opinion on the person. And look, again, we've got another example of once more than one thing can be true. I can understand that there are things to dislike about how the US conducts its foreign policy, regardless of whether it's the red or blue team in power. I think that's what people are conveniently skipping over. We look at the power bases. We look at who's been in power since the beginning of this century, and it's been pretty much 50-50. So it's regardless of who's in power. So I can dislike some things that are done there on foreign policy, but I can also say there's no compelling argument whatsoever for Australia to leave the alliance with the US. In fact, there's probably more reason than ever to strengthen our alliance with them. And there's a lot of things about that I don't like. I made my opinions on different things with sort of aggressive military rather than defensive military, and different foreign policy things sort of fairly clear how I feel about them, but doing the reality of the politics here, there's damn good reason to ensure that we have an even stronger alliance with them. And to be honest, the people getting all bloody high and mighty about what the Orange Man is doing seem to be particularly quiet about it when it was George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Joe Biden. All the ones I mentioned at the start of this the start of this century. This is business as usual for both teams. And I saw that we'll have a link to this. There was a Guardian piece as well, which we'd got a bit of info from. And there was a quote in there that I thought, well, this sort of was pertinent to me. Sorry, I haven't got the author's name down here, but it will be in the show notes. But in the opinion piece, he says, but when he does leave office, what will remain? What of the stacked Supreme Court and the hollowed-out loyalist-only government departments, the gerrymandered districts and the supine electoral officials? In other words, what every presidential term leaves the next term, or if they've done the 8, they leave it there for the other one to clean up. So if there was something presented that was new or a valid choice for Australia, I would probably have a different opinion. There's not, so I don't. And I think there's reason to strengthen it. So that tends to be how I feel about it overall. What about you?
I guess I should start off by saying I'm not a particular fan of Donald Trump and the way he does things.
Yep.
Because I think it's important that I guess the listeners should understand that whilst I don't like the man, I also don't think I would. It's incredibly foolish to sit there and go, we need to leave this alliance because they've got a president that is being generous. You could say he's unorthodox. I think he's incredibly rude, quite frankly. He's a bit of a bully, if I'm honest. That's the way he does things. He appears to believe that strength and basically bullying other people is the best way to get what you want, which I think is probably true in business. I don't think that's quite true in foreign policy because the world is very deeply interconnected. A lot of America's sovereign debt is owned by international companies and international governments. There's a lot of international companies that are integrated into the US system and vice versa. We live in an interconnected world. So to be an isolationist in 2026 is a bit foolish, particularly an isolationist that's more than happy to piss off everybody. It's foolish. It's short-sighted in a way that I don't think he fully understands the damage he's doing. Well, I'm assuming that because otherwise I can't really make sense of exactly why he's doing what he's doing, but I'm assuming he doesn't either, but maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe there is some grand strategy to it all that we're all in the dark about. What I do think is foolish, though, is to sit there and go, we need to end AUKUS, as an example. Gareth Evans, I think, should quite frankly be quiet and sit in a corner because a complete fool of an idea. Ending the US-Australia alliance is absolutely ridiculous. There is no alternative, as you've said. There's no realistic alternative. Like you said, it's a short-term problem. He'll be out of office, well, hopefully. You never quite know with him whether he's being serious or not. But we would expect he'll be out of office in a couple of years. And whilst the damage his administration has done, I do think will take time that trust will take time to be restored. I'm pretty confident it will be in time. When the new president comes in, things will go back. They will need to restore that trust that has been broken with a lot of their allies, but I can't see why that won't happen, quite frankly. and we'll move on. In 10 years' time, we'll all look back and go, wasn't that a crazy time? And it's, well, at least that's my optimistic view of the future. Worst case scenario is ending it now, in my mind, is of no benefit to Australia. Even if Donald Trump continues to misbehave and continues and basically goes full tyrant dictator mode, Australia, it still doesn't benefit us to rock that boat. We are at best we are a middle power, and we heavily rely on the US for defense and equipment. It's easy to say, oh, we should end our cooperation with the US, but a lot of our equipment is US proprietary equipment. So that's going to become very, very awkward in terms of sourcing parts, replacement, software upgrades, all of those sorts of things. And this has been deliberate. Over the last sort of 80 years since World War II, basically, that we've heavily integrated ourselves into the US military industrial system to benefit us, our security, and that the US can rely on Australia as a reliable defense partner. So it goes both ways, you know. And to end that because of one president's outbursts, whilst it feels like, you know, we don't want to play with you anymore, if you're going to be a bully, that's not going to change his behavior, right? It's not. This isn't schoolyard chatter between kids where you can say that. If you're going to be like this, we won't play with you anymore. He will turn around and go, good, I don't need you, piss off.
Yep.
And then we're left high and dry. And that's a significantly worse position to be in. And so I think it's quite foolish for these previous statesmen to say such things. I also do want to point out that Bob Carr is quite a fan of China and was present at the big Chinese military parade.
He was there as well at that one.
He was there as well. So,
okay.
Whilst he's not as hardcore as some of the others, you know, there are conflicting alliances within some of the older Australian statesmen in terms of relationships with China. And I think that's important to point out as well, because it definitely shapes their opinions of where Australia's security could come from in the future. And I think it would be deeply unpopular, even if it didn't change what happens day to day for the average Aussie. I think it would be deeply unpopular to shift our security alliance from the US to a country like China, because we don't have a shared cultural background. We don't have a shared language. We basically don't have much in common at all, quite frankly. Culturally, incredibly different. The only thing we have that's similar in any way is proximity, but even then, we're not even that close. So I can't see a good argument really at all to make that shift, other than just trying to cuddle up to the biggest bully in the yard, basically, in the schoolyard or the prison yard, depending on how you want to look at it. And so for me, that's just a fool's errand. Like no. I think we're best to do what Joe Hockey suggested, is talk behind the scenes. Don't rock the boat publicly, at least. Just keep it on, put our head down, bum up. We just keep chugging along. We be friendly. We be cordial to our American cousins. Because at the end of the day, if you're an American listening to this, like, we love you guys. We don't love everything you guys do. But at the end of the day, you are our cousins. And we have a lot of shared history, and we're happy to stand side by side together with you. We don't want to become the 51st state or anything like that, but we're more than happy to stand side by side with you guys. And I don't see any benefit or desire from most Aussies, I think, to step away from the American sphere of influence. But I do think you sort of alluded to this as well. It is good that we sort of do have more sovereign capability, that we do kind of take our defense a bit more seriously, and all of those kind of things as well. So, like, I won't rehash a lot of the stuff that you went over, but and we've talked about this before. We can all agree. I think the world is a lot more dangerous, a lot more unpredictable these days, and as such, it's prudent to be a bit prepared for the potential of what could happen.
We've been pretty positive about stories that we've covered with where Australia's building its own defence industry, and on the side of that, energy, which we keep pushing that more of a need for, but also tech as well, because again, you can have more than one thing being true at the time. You can say, okay, we want to be fully committed to being an ally, but we also want to build up our own strength, and it would be derelict. We'd be derelict in our duty not to at least build that for the future, for future generations. You hope that it's never going to be needed, but if it is needed, you don't start thinking about it then. So I think you can have both those things happening at the same time and still maintain this strong allegiance, but also get closer and closer towards a sort of independence.
Yeah, and actually, and again, we've spoken about this before, but it goes both ways. So for our community, for our defense partnerships, whatever they look like in the future, I'm assuming we're going to continue to be with the US, but even in the past with Britain, it benefits them if we have sovereign capabilities. We saw this in World War II, where Britain is literally on the other side of the planet, and they are limited in their ability to project power this far away, even at the height of the British Empire. Distance is just a factor that you cannot get away from. So it benefits Australia and our security partners, whoever they are, that we can stand up for ourselves and we can supply a lot of our munitions and vehicles and all of that kind of stuff. And it goes both ways. You know, we've talked about the Loyal Wingman program. We've talked about parts of AUKUS. We've talked about like the Ghost Shark submarine and things like that. And the US benefits from that integration as well. People come up, we've got a lot of very clever people here in Australia, and they come up with some incredible products. Wi-Fi was invented in Australia. You're welcome if you're listening to this, because I guarantee you use Wi-Fi probably on a daily basis if you're not using it right now. Things like that. We have a lot to give, and at the same time, we do want our security partners to value that and not be too much of a dick about it, because you know, every country does have their own inventions and sort of, you know, clever. There's a lot of clever sausages in every country of the world, and you know, the bully in charge right now doesn't seem to value that. But the reality is, I think he does. Whilst he doesn't say it, he does value the fact that we can actually stand on our own 2 feet and that sort of stuff as well. So he likes to see strong countries protecting themselves. And I think from Australia's point of view, our best way to keep on his best side and moving forward is to show that and say, yeah, you know what, like, we're not a freeloader. We can stand up on our own 2 feet, and we're going to. And this, you can respect that, quite frankly. And I think we've all been a bit slack in the past about it. And I'm glad that we're starting to take it a bit more seriously and actually pull our fingers out and get some of the sovereign capability, because it might be needed. And like you said, it's too late. If once the guns start shooting, it's well too late to start trying to establish new supply lines and entire industries and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, look, I think it's a bit foolish to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But again, you and I are in charge. Hopefully cooler heads prevail. But this is one of these watch and see type situations, and hopefully, yeah, cooler heads will prevail long term and everything will be fine. But fuck, I don't know. rough seas ahead, I guess.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
Right. Let's move on. It's time for This Week in Australian History.
I come from a land down under.
This week in Australian history, we're covering 16th to 22nd of January. 1998, the first victim of the Melbourne gangland killings, Alphonse Gangitano, is murdered in his Templestowe home, and that it turned to escalating feuds among criminal syndicates that went from 1998 to 2010. That's
a long time. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. It was a big thing. What they have, at least 36 killings involved in it. So there was drugs and violence and murder and tension, and I'm pretty sure there's a movie about that. Has to be. There was. In fact, there was that
Underbelly series.
Underbelly. Thank you.
Some of those.
Yeah. Actually, I like that series. It was done well. January 17th, 1922, the first Archibald Prize for Portraiture is won by William McInnes. Will we ever see an AI win that? Let's hope not. Yeah, exactly. And if you've skipped ahead, as we do the chapter markers, so if you've skipped ahead to this week in Australian history, check out the first segment, which was a longer one than normal, where we talk about AI and that. So I don't think it will happen. 1944, meat rationing begins in Australia. So it was during World War II. 1972, a tent embassy is set up in Canberra outside Parliament House protesting land rights. And there's still an embassy there, even with I was just about to say, even with the new Parliament House. Did they move?
I think they did move it, but I think the old one is still there as like I want to say memorial, but that's not the right word. As a bit of a museum.
Reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the same way as there's the old Parliament House, you've got the old tennis. Yeah. That's tracking a little bit more with what I had in my head. January 18th, 1788, HMS Supply of the First Fleet arrived in Botany Bay. 1878, construction of the Ghan Railway starts in Port Augusta in South Australia. 1934, Qantas and Imperial Airways joined forces and established Qantas Empire Airways. Excuse me, sorry. We've gone a bit longer. I had an alarm set there. 1977, a train derailment and bridge collapse kills 83 in the Granville Railway disaster. 2003, the Canberra bushfires reached the city, which was, they killed 4 people and destroyed in excess of 400 houses. So, that was one of those things that once it got in the city with that blaze, it really, they were extreme fire conditions, because there'd been drought and there were high winds, and it burned 164,000 hectares. But once it got into those houses, it really took on a whole new cataclysmic level. January 19th, 1975, 2JJ, the predecessor of youth radio types, of youth radio Triple J commences broadcasting in Sydney. 2006, a former leader of the Australian Labor Party, Mark Latham, is charged with common assault, malicious damage and stealing from a person after an altercation with a News Limited reporter. I think he did something to his... he broke the camera and took the memory card.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
January 20th, 1880, Andrew George Scott, known as Bushranger Captain Moonlight, was hanged in Sydney. 1942, Charles Groves Wright Anderson wins a Victoria Cross at Muir River in Malaya for extraordinary bravery during the Battle of Muir River where he led the... Actually, what's the correct way? I've got 2/19th Battalion. What is that? Is that the 2nd and the 19th, or that's part of the 19th? How should I be reading that?
I am a Navy man, so I don't know.
Yeah, but you're closer than I am.
It'd be the 2nd. Oh, I need to see it written down. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, look, that's unfair. No, okay, look, I'll say it, and people who know can translate it, and people who don't know can say, well, I'll look it up, which I'll do after this because I didn't really. So where he led the 2/19th Battalion in holding positions against overwhelming forces, evacuating wounded under fire amid the rapid fall of British Malaya. January 21st in 1887, Brisbane receives a daily rainfall of 465 millimetres, 18.3 inches, which was then a record for any Australian capital city. A lot of bloody rain.
That is a lot of rain.
Bloody oath. 1918, the Mackay cyclone struck Mackay in Queensland, causing serious damage and killing 30. 1931, Isaac Isaacs became the first Australian-born Governor-General of Australia. And in 1941, World War II, Australian and British forces attacked Tobruk in Libya. January 22nd, 1899, leaders of 6 Australian colonies meet in Melbourne to discuss Confederation. And we know how that turned out. 1920, the Australian Country Party is formed at a meeting of farmers in Melbourne. 1941, Tobruk surrenders to Australian 6th Division. And then finally...
I know what's going on with that 2/19th
Oh, please tell me.
So I quickly looked it up because I was like, when I saw it written down, I was like, oh, that seems a bit weird. That's not normally how it's written. So I thought perhaps it was like 2nd Division, 19th Battalion or something like that, but it's not. The reason it's written like that is it's part of the 2nd Australian Imperial Force, which was a professional unit, and as a result, it was denoted that it was the 2nd/19th Battalion. So that being part of the 2nd Australian Imperial Force denoted it separately compared to militia units that were also part of the 19th Battalion.
Oh, wow.
So it is a bit weird. It's not something we'd see much these days, which is like, I was like, oh, that's a bit weird that they've written it like that. But it looks like it was a specific thing for the Australian Imperial Forces during the war. So something, an interesting note. And that's why it was written like that.
Oh, thank you. And we finish off with another war-related one. 1943, HMAS Patricia Cam is sunk by Japanese aircraft near the Wessel Islands off Arnhem Land while on patrol duties during World War II, resulting in the loss of 9 crew members, including the captain. And that had been converted from a mission vessel. And at that stage, it highlighted the vulnerability of coastal shipping to aerial attacks in the Northern Theatre. And I, too, have no segue, as you did in the beginning of the thing, to take us out to the 4X bottle top quiz, other than to say, let's think about it and raise a beer to everyone who gave their... that sounds a bit raise a beer to the memory of people that you might have lost in the wars. It comes up because it was such a massive thing, and with the passage of history, it's still serious, but it gives us a little bit of distance and perspective on both sides. Now that's a bit bloody serious to go into it, but. Yeah, I often think about that with these ones. I think, God, you read this happened there, and, we're almost getting up to bloody 100 years in some of these things. It's a long time, and I know there's the stuff about never forgetting, but, you don't forget, but it does grow a bit dimmer.
It does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. All right, that sound means it's time for the 4X Bottle Top Challenge, and this time is some smatterings of the most random questions that I could find. All of them. I don't think these are particularly difficult, and I think you should be able to get. So there's no theme. You should be able to get these.
Easy enough for me, even.
I genuinely think, because sometimes I can go down rabbit holes and find some really tricky ones. But for the punters playing at home, sometimes it's good to have some more general knowledge, let's call it that.
Yep. So, agreed.
So, question 1, where was Australian bush ranger Ned Kelly's last stand? What town was it in?
Oh, why? I should know this. God, I think it's Euroa. But last stand, Euroa or Eugowra? Is it Euroa?
No.
No, it's not. Okay, I'm not even, by the sounds of things, I'm not even close.
No, it's...
Oh, his last...
I don't want to say it's close to that because I don't know geographically how close that is to the place, but also it sort of sounds similar, but in a way that won't help you.
Okay. Does it start with an E at least?
No.
Okay. All right.
Starts with a G.
Was it Glen Rowan?
Yes, it was. Glen Rowan, Victoria. I was like, you should know this.
I should know that. Yeah, exactly. God.
Yes. So famously shot in the legs, wasn't killed during the shootout, and then was hanged later at Melbourne jail. So, question 2. What year did Cyclone Tracy hit Darwin?
In 1974.
Yes, very good.
Why am I so certain that it was 1974? Was because we had we'd left the country, moved to the city. Dad got a new job, and I had started at I was in 5th class then, so year 5. And that was the first term. It started there, and there was a bloke from, he was down in 11-year-old like the rest of us, 11, 12, and his family had lost their home in cyclone, up in the cyclone, and I remember just sort of thinking it was just something. It was the first one of the first things of being exposed to something that was bigger and outside of me, that I was old enough to actually have some cognizance of, this massive event has happened, rather than sort of like, my previously egocentric view of the world. Suddenly it was a real event going on from elsewhere in the country. And I don't know, for some reason it stuck in my head. So I've got a place marker in time for it.
I guess for me, that was probably 9/11. And I think for a lot of people in my generation, it was like we'd had things before that, but that, globally, of course, that had a huge impact. So that very much stands out as one of the big ones. Sort of in my youth, I would have been, how old was I then? About 11, 12. So
there you go.
Yeah. So
old enough that you can conceive of something that's happening.
Your mind's sort of alert enough, adult enough to really consider the impact of what's going on. And I think 9/11's probably a bit more globally impactful than Cyclone Tracy, but not to downplay Tracy, because that was huge, especially here in Australia, like significant event, as it should have been, because it was absolutely horrendous. So, now, last question.
It's in terms of how you actually relate to it as a kid. What actually makes that impact?
Yeah, you're right. Now, last question. In what city did the first Commonwealth Parliament sit, And bonus, if you can give me a date for when it sat.
Oh, God.
So this is a little bit trickier, but I feel like you should know the answer to this.
Yeah, I do know that it was in Melbourne down here in the what they call Royal Exhibition building now. I don't know if it was called that back then.
That is actually a good question. I'm not sure, but
yeah, well, whatever the building may well have been, but yeah, the Royal Exhibition building. When was it held? First Parliament. I mean, you'd have to say 19. It might be a trick, but you'd have to say 1901. Well, I would have to say.
It was in 1908. Do you know the exact day?
Or the exact day.
Give me the month.
That's what you asked me, not the year. Damn it.
Well, I said the date. So, yeah, you get points for the year. You got a year.
You're right. You did say the date, which includes the day. God, I wonder if that's going to be January 26th. No.
It's not. I'll give you that. It's not. Yeah. It's not on Australia Day. That would have been good, though.
It would have. That would have made some sense. That's a great. Well, look. What I suppose maybe it's going to be. Well, let me guess wildly at March 21st.
That's actually not a terrible guess, because it's later than I would have thought. If you asked me this, I probably would have picked maybe February or March, because you go, Federation just happens, so Parliament's going to kick off soon, but because it's 1901, people are going to have to travel and things like that. You know? Yeah.
That's exactly how my wheels were turning. You're right.
Exactly. So end of March was a really good guess, and that's where my mind would have gone as well. But no, it wasn't the end of March. It was the 9th of May, which is shockingly long after Federation, in my opinion, that it took them so long to get organised and actually hold Parliament, considering Federation, of course, happened on the 1st of January 1901. So, how's that for a bit of a delay in Parliament? Look, they're not quick about a lot of things unless they're really motivated. Then they can certainly push through legislation very quickly.
As mates of the podcast who heard last week's one on the firearms laws would probably have picked up, but yeah.
But yeah, no, they were very tardy back in 1901. And look, it might have been a case of it travelling just took a significantly longer period of time than we're really aware of. But yeah, 9th of May, which just feels like a long time, but yeah.
It does.
So, on that, thanks so much for another Australia Talks. If you have any feedback or suggestions for topics, please get in touch with us on our email at australiatalks@proton.me. We'd also be grateful if you could subscribe and give us an honest review, as this helps us out immensely. But the best thing you can do to support the show is just share it with a friend that you think might enjoy it. Otherwise, join us next week for another episode of Australia Talks. Thanks for listening, and as always, don't forget to tell your mum I love her.
Thank you, DK.